Hello, my name is Christopher Amendi, and I'm going to talk about should sex ed be allowed in public schools and is it even effective? And on a more personal note, um, the importance and effect it has on individuals' lives. So, should sex ed even be allowed in public schools? And is it effective? How does it do? So, many of you are maybe not have been taught directly about sex. But hopefully at this point you have to some various degrees and forms. But would you now want to have a sex ed in your education, in future generations educations? The thought of public school systems informing teens about doing it is hotly controversial. And as a student who went to Catholic school, well, I wasn't taught anything besides abstinence and waiting for my marriage. So I value the education I got through movies, books, and internet videos. So my goal through this video is to weed out the archaic methods and apply methods that allow for healthy, safe, and positive experiences for all individuals, which means tackling a method that seems fine and dandy, but actually ends up doing more harm than good, which you might have guessed is abstinence. So, referring to the opposing views in the context article, abstinent sex education does not reduce teen sexual activity. So, the author writes in that article the three reasons why it doesn't work. So, there's absolutely no evidence that abstinence reduces the rate, and it's not clear that it ethically sends the right message to people. In the Advocates of Youth, they state that the abstinent-only program are not effective in delaying the initiation of sexual activity or reducing pregnancy, which you think the abstinence program would do, but it doesn't. And teens enrolled in abstinent program weren't less likely to delay sexual initiation or have fewer partners or abstain from sex. So if they're going to do it, we should at least inform them. With these programs, they claim the decline in pregnancy. They say that that was their doing, but it was actually the knowledge and contraceptives that teens have been using during the time of 1995 to 2005. An 86 improvement rate. That's a lot. With the improved knowledge and use of contraceptives, this allowed for the drop, not abstinence, which is giving everyone the wrong idea, which is false information. Abstinent only until marriage programs reflect American values, which is not true. You can see it in our movies, TV shows. It doesn't work that way. So, in a nationally representative survey, 95% participants from ages 19 through 44 stated that they have participated in premarital sex. 95%. So that tells you a lot, that it's not just teens, it's older adults, it's not just the teens at risk. So for the parentals, in the article, Teens at Risk, the author describes a meeting they attended where parents for teen girls were more frantic about the abstinence than they were worried than the parents of boys. Still worrisome, but not as much. Those parents care in their child's teen years. They often change their attitude once they go to college, start seeing someone for a long time. And sometimes it's even hypocritical because parents and people are sending this message that they don't follow themselves. So how do you expect teens to follow it if you aren't even following it? Contraceptives in effect with the youths. In the article, Sex Education and its Association with Teenage Sexual Activity, the writer informs that 3/4 of young men and women living in the suburban metropolitan areas who had sex education, but only 8 out of 10 students receive different types of information about contraceptives. So people who do get sex education aren't receiving the same information, which can cause a blurry line, which isn't the best, but it's really good that the information is getting out there. So referring back to my first statement, isn't it odd that 8 out of 10 students receive different information about contraceptives and about which ones? In the article Abstinence Only First Comprehensive Sex Education, it talks about a school called Maple Grove, and where it talks about the seniors that receive the abstinence class or a basic sex ed to its students, which is wonderful, but it doesn't really reflect that in the student body. Where this article talks about a girl named Ashley who's taking the abstinent class. Um, she doesn't take the sex ed class because they talk about gays and lesbians and that stuff, and I personally don't want to hear about that, which is appalling to myself, being an LGBT person, because a person can't just ignore that, but if that's what she wants to do, go ahead. And she also says, in another opinion, I want to marry the opposite sex. I don't want to spend my life with that one person, sharing things with that one person, not other people. Okay, that's one thought. And on the other hand, there was a boy named Josh. Thought it was a no-brainer to take the sex education choice, though some students have turned to calling the sex education class the slutty class. Why is it considered to be slutty to want to know more about protecting yourselves and others from diseases and pregnancy? I don't understand. You think a person would want to protect themselves because they never know what's going to happen when it happens. So besides the feud in the student body, there's a parental feud about sex education curriculum. So referring back to the girl named Ashley, she was brought up with strict Christian views. Well, her mother was stoked with upright Christian views, who stoked the fires to unveil the abstinence course for the half the students who don't decide to have sex before marriage. And one of her main problems with the curriculum was that contraceptives and sex were discussed, or if at all, before marriage. So she didn't like that they weren't learning about marriage before they were learning about sex, so she wanted it flipped. So she thought the method of informing young teens would encourage them to have sex. While the parent of Josh, knowing that half the high schools are having sex, she was mainly concerned about disease and preventing pregnancy. You can't have too much information. That is what she says. And I think she's exactly right. Even if you don't plan on it, when it comes time to, you're going to want to know what to do. Because you might not want to have a baby. You might not want to possibly contract a disease. So you have to protect yourself. So she was being a progressive mother, wanting to protect her sons. They even received the talk at home. But with that basic information, she wanted her sons to know more. And she wanted her school to inform them about that, which I don't think is a bad idea. Though common grounds on what middle schoolers and high schoolers should receive, this is what the parents' conference talked about, like being exposed to the experiences of puberty, basic reproductions with animals as examples and not people, because they don't want to promote the idea of sex. They couldn't even talk about, did the clitoris deserve the mention in any discussion about anatomy? Did children need to know about masturbation or homosexuality? This is the topics that they were talking about, whether or not they should be learning, which is normal human activity, knowing these. So it's really hard to create a standard when people feel so strongly about what their children should be doing, what they should be learning, what they should not be learning. But I think an example of a school being on the right path and how to go about it is a Ridgewood High School, New Jersey. And I think they give a better look at sexual education values. Like, they do a wonderful example. So this school is renowned for its sex comprehension and thorough life family curriculum. They enlist various teachers and people to be part of their course. So it's not just one person, they have various people come in. The Ridgewood area students receive this course at every grade starting at elementary school, who have a certified nurse come in, talk with children, but as they progress, they have a certified teacher in health to help inform them of the rest instead of a regular teacher. Besides the head of the department of that area in their school, they have a minister, a pediatrician, someone from the YMCA, several parents, and 2 students, among others, to help form this curriculum that will be taught at school. So it's not one person who has really strong views about abstinence or someone who has really passionate views about sex ed comprehension. It's a lot of people discussing what the next generation will do. And I think that's a wonderful way for schools to go about doing it. And besides just people talking about it, there is a government issue with the SIECUS publishing guidelines for comprehension sex education from K to 12th grade. They give out information and straightforward facts about sex and various contraceptives with the young mind that young people explore their sexuality as a natural process of achieving sexual maturity, which is a great way to explain someone developing into adult and their urges and their needs and a way to keep them safe. The choice on whether or not to be involve themselves with sexual activity should be based on knowledge and not condemning their ideas or their urges, just the facts. Just give them the facts and let them make their own choices, because in the end, that is what they're going to do. So the idea of having a sex ed course transcend into higher grades is great. Starting kids early, learning about terminology, and progressing into contraceptives, gay discrimination, theories about sexuality, and etc. So to conclude, putting health over ideas is better. Even with the government regimen in place, we still can push people's ideals, even if they're harmful. With the idea that people do what they want, even if someone says no, like your parents, it will happen if the person decides. We prepare people for fires, disasters, so why can't we prepare them for something they'll encounter multiple times in their life? Thank you so much, and that was my presentation.